Hello everyone, I hope, Mike. Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day. So today we're gonna drink some cider and talk about the 9 books that I read in the month of March. I went through like a huge reading slump in March. The depression hit me hard and yeah, I haven't felt that bad for many years. So even though I saw it coming, January was so intense and I know like it was going off a cliff. And I saw it happening and it still happened. But I think I'm slowly like getting myself back on track and I'm slowly back to feeling my oats. So let's just talk about the 9 books that I managed to read last month. 3 of them I started already last month. 4 of them I already started last month, and most of them actually finished in like the last 10 days of the month. So I feel like I'm picking up again, but it's just been difficult for me. Life has been difficult. You know how it is at this point. You've all been through it at some point. This makeup look today is designed by Shay. I think Fair has their own YouTube channel, or I do know that, a booktube channel. So I will link Fair channel down below if you're interested. And also I've been doing this series where I let other people design my makeup looks and then I do them. It's a fun time because it makes me be able to do makeup, try new stuff, and not be creative. Take credit for someone else's work while still them allowing me to do it. So I have a template for it and you can draw something and send it to me through Instagram. So if you're interested, just let me know down below. So more than that, let's just get into the books. Life Goofer does not encourage alcohol drinking, but here we are. So the first book I read was So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Ron Swanson. Ron Swanson! Ah! Okay, sorry. That was funny for me. Jon Ronson. So I listened to this as an audiobook and Jon Ronson narrates it himself, which was great. He basically talks about all these people, or case studies of all these people who have been publicly shamed on social media, the internet, for making untasteful jokes, for copying someone else's work, mistakes that are bad, but it also could happen to anyone if it's misinterpreted or during certain circumstances. And the whole message of the book is like, don't follow the crowd and hurt people without knowing the full picture, like use social media mindfully and all that. So in a way, like, I appreciate that this book exists, but I think it also wasn't like that much for me. I just didn't enjoy it all that much. I felt like it was a bit indulging in the drama and focusing on like all the facts of like how these people went through that, what led them to it, and all like their emotions about it and the situation. And it was very much like watching a drama channel of like, ooh, what's the backstage of all this drama, rather than like focusing on the plot. At least that's how I perceived this book, or like focusing on the message. So I gave it 2 stars. I wasn't a big fan of it, which was a bit disappointing because I've heard great things about this one. Let me know your thoughts on it if you ever read it. Then I picked the last volume in Space Battle Lunchtime by Natalie Rees. So I believe this is the last one. It is the 3rd one, and it basically follows this woman who is a baker, and she gets pulled into space in this like intergalactic cooking show to represent humans, or to take place of someone who like has magically disappeared. And so there's like drama around this cooking show, and then she also like falls in love with this person. So this one focuses mainly on like their relationship. So this one's a bit more like queer than the other ones, which I liked, but it also felt like they were milking the concept a bit too much. So I enjoyed it a lot. I think the artwork is fabulous. Like, it's just really fun, honestly, and I think it's just a great ride, and I recommend the series as a whole. But I don't think they should be making more in this, but I'm really interested to see like what this author and illustrator does in the future, and I'll definitely be reading that. Then I picked up, this says in Norwegian, this is Snowcat Prince by Dina Norland. So Dina Norland is a Norwegian illustrator, but she has quite a famous like illustration YouTube channel that I've been following for years, and she released this. She does it all in English, and she released this, I think, last year in English. It was originally written and illustrated. I was gonna say illustrated in English. What does that look like, may I ask? But then she only sold like a certain amount of copies and I never got a hold of them. But then she got like in touch with a Norwegian publishing company and she was able to publish it in Norwegian. And lucky for me, I speak and read Norwegian, so I was able to get a hold from it there, which I'm really excited about, and I'm so grateful that that was an opportunity that I had. So it is a recent release in Norwegian, and it follows like the Snowcat Prince, who's like the youngest of all these siblings, and then there's like a lot of myths going on when it comes to different things that have happened in the past. It's a long story, but it sets it like straight off in the beginning, so it makes clear sense. But I think the illustrations were really well done. Like, I love Dina Norland's illustration style. I think she's just marvelous in how she illustrates things, and I appreciate that a lot. But she's not exactly a writer, and it was a bit more written like a middle grade, you know, when they talk, and it's a bit like animated and forced in a way. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's more of like a 3.5. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was an easy read, and I'm just excited I got to read it because I've been following her like journey of creating this graphic novel on her channel. So that was just finally fun to see the final product. Words today. Then I listened to the audiobook of Underground by Haruki Murakami. So I said I'm going to be reading one Murakami book a month. And this month I chose Underground because I found the audiobook for it, and the audiobook was really fabulous because they had 3 different voice actors depending on like who in the book was talking. So this follows what year was it? Oh my god, I feel like I should know that. So it's the 20th of March, 1995. In Japan, there is the underground gas attack. So I don't know if you're familiar with it. I didn't know the details either, but this cult religious group called basically planned all these gas attacks on different spots in the underground of Tokyo. The poison leaked, and I think 12 people died and hundreds were affected by it. And so it's a real story, and Murakami interviews all these different people who experienced the event, and that's the majority of the book. And it's just written like interviews, which made it like a really great audiobook, because I think reading it, I would get like a bit bored. And I also read it or listened to it throughout the month, which made it not as repetitive, because all these people do have experiences that like are repeated because like the facts are repeated. But it was just really scary to read it. Like, hearing these perspectives of normal people who like experienced such life-changing, like traumatic experience in like a day they thought would be normal. Like, you go to the bus and you're on your way to work, or you take the metro, and like all of a sudden like your life might change forever. Like, that is just such a weird thing to think about and read about. And I was scared a lot of the time when I was like going on the metro after reading this book, and still now like it's in my mind. And it's also scary, all these coincidences where like I've been sick for a week, so today was like my first day back to work, and then like this happens, or I decided to take another metro and this happened, and I decided to go in front of like in the first like trolley room of the metro, and so I wasn't affected as much, and like how all these like small decisions really affected how much they were affected by this attack. And like, I don't know, I just started thinking about all these like small coincidences, that decision that we make every day, and how in this situation it could be like a life or death choice, but you don't know when you're taking it. And I just started thinking like about all these things, and I think I gave it 3 stars because it was repetitive. I feel like it didn't enlighten me so much because it is very focused on the event and it doesn't really have a bigger message, but it was really, really interesting, and I would not have read it or listened to it if it wasn't written by Haruki Murakami. It's very different from his normal stuff because it is nonfiction and a true story, and most of it is actually written by the people he interviews. And then there's a section in the back where he interviews people who have been members of this cult. So that was really interesting, and I just love stuff about cults in general. I'm really glad I read it, but I'm not sure I'm going to be picking up anything similar anytime soon. All right, and then I picked up A Spy in the Struggle by Aya de Leon. So this was the book club pick for the climate fiction book club that I have together with Sim and Sage. And I will link the live show we had down below if you're interested. We had like a really interesting discussion about like the climate change aspects and the social justice aspects in this. So basically you're following Yolanda, who has gotten a job for FBI as a lawyer, but then she's taken undercover because she is Black, and she kind of comes from this town where there is like a youth activist organization who are standing up to this big corporation, Rendell, who is just bad for their economy, for their livelihood, for the environment, and the people there are like rising up, and especially the kids are rising up. And so the FBI uses Yolanda to go undercover in this group and kind of like take it down and just spy and stuff. So it's really, really interesting. And Yolanda starts off as like this super unlikable character because she's kind of on the opposite side of like what we are, you know, like we are there with the kids. We want this corporation to get justice. So it was really interesting that way. My biggest con is that the romance is like unnecessary, explicit, and it really takes you out of the story. But I give it 4 stars because it's a page turner. Like, it was so easy to read, and this was the first book that I read physically, like after my 3-week reading slump, or almost like 4-week reading slump, and it really helped with that. And if you want like a fun, engaging, super relevant page turner, because it also takes place like after this COVID thing, and it talks a lot about like Black Lives Matter and protests, and I really liked it. And it would have been a 5 stars if it wasn't for like the romance and some like other bits and pieces. Then I randomly picked up this collection because I was just going to the comic book store. Everything's like started to open finally in Denmark. So My Life in Transition by Julia Kay. So Julia Kay is a trans woman cartoon strip creator, writer, drawer, illustration. And I'll give you like a quick, they just like these strips. And she posts a lot of them like on her Instagram, but this is like a collection, and I believe actually it's the second one in the series. I think the first one's called something My Life as a Late Bloomer or something like that, and this is kind of like later in her life. I'd be really interested in like reading her first one. I gave this 3 stars because it was kind of put up to talk about like all of these kind of trans related stuff, and it definitely had those in there, but it actually focuses more on Julia's relationship to other people and the partners that she has throughout this book. And yeah, she also makes one comic strip like every single day of a year, and that's this. So it was very like piece of life. Some are more interesting than others, and I did enjoy it, but it didn't like exactly have a huge impact on me. Then I listened to another audiobook that I just had to because everyone was talking about it, and that's Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is my 3rd book by him, and to no surprise to anyone, I give it 3 stars, just like I've given his other books. I've read The Bird Giant and Never Let Me Go. This one, I'm not gonna say it's my least favorite. I think my favorite is The Bird Giant, and then comes this one, and then Never Let Me Go. But they're all kind of this like same field of this like quiet narrative, and the book never really takes off exactly where you want it to go. So you follow Klara, who is an AF artificial friend, and she's in the store waiting to be bought, and she finally gets bought by this kid, Josie, and her mother, and Josie's sick, and so she's there to take care of Josie. And the story kind of like starts there, but it's also like about the relationship that Klara has to the son, and how the son is like nourishing her, and how she like asks the son to heal Josie. And the ending was like what really broke it for me. I feel like this could have been a 5 star up to like maybe 75% of the book, and then the last bit just didn't go where I wanted it to go at all. And there could have been some really interesting discussions on like climate change and corporations, and there could have been some great discussions about like nature and technology, but it just went in a direction where all those discussions were just like shut down and flatlined in a bit. So it was a bit disappointing, but I'm really glad I read it, and I can be part of discussions now. Then this book I started in February, and I thought I was going to read it for February, but I didn't get to it. This is Gingerbread by Helen Oyeyemi. yes, my rabbits have destroyed this book. It's Ben. He's such a chewer. So this book, it is supposed to be like a Hansel and Gretel retelling. And it sort of is, like, it goes in and out of that narrative, but it's very loosely based, a retelling of that. So you're following this grandmother, mother, and child generational story of these three women who are all connected, obviously, but like their stories interweave in sort of the mother's narrative. I feel like explaining this book is just generally impossible. It's very much like, what the fuck am I reading throughout it? But it is so beautifully written. It is so beautifully written, you guys. I was like, I highlighted so many things just because they were beautiful, and the way that Helen like compares certain things to others was beautiful. There's like some dolls in here that are literate, and there are weird stuff going on, and there's kind of this like town that the family comes from that doesn't actually exist, and there's like a gingerbread house. But you know, when I was reading this, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, but by the end I kind of knew exactly what I was reading, but in like the knowing that kind of comes from within rather than the knowing that you can explain. And I love books that do that. I think that's fantastic storytelling. I was very like, do I love this book? Do I want to give it 5 stars? I gave it 4 stars because of my enjoyment, maybe a 3, because it dragged on a bit. You don't really know where it's going, but wow, what a ride. I would recommend that. If you like just like weird stuff and you want to read something different, recommend. And then the last book I'm going to talk about is Homie by Dennis Smith. This is a poetry collection. I also started this in February. I usually don't read poetry, and I just really don't want to review this one because I honestly have 0 thoughts. Like, I enjoyed it. I wasn't like super overwhelmed by it. I don't really like poetry in general. I mean, they really played with like a lot of different formats, which was cute. And I really like the conversations about queer, non-binary, and Dennis is also HIV positive, and I think at least one of the poems is about that. And I just liked the themes of them, and some quotes were just like amazing, but I don't know if I felt all that much, which is a bit sad because I feel like a poetry collection, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. But I do also feel like poetry is more for the writer than the reader. I mean, maybe you have a different experience with it, but I feel also like this would be much more powerful if it was spoken rather than read. So those are my thoughts. I still give it 4 stars because as someone who doesn't like poetry, I liked it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if you read any of these and your thoughts on them. I wish you all a really great March. Happy Trans Visibility Day, which was yesterday, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!